Hey, what's up guys? Coach Tim here with another episode of Managing the Madness. I'm here on campus at UT with my buddy Logan Schwartz. Logan, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Awesome. Logan is a clinical assistant professor here at UT in the Kinesiology Department. And how you doing, dude?
I'm great. We just finished up with a lab. It was always good.
Yeah.
Anytime you're here, it's always good.
So behind the scenes, I came down and I guest speak at Logan's class once a semester. And I've been coming down here for over 10 years at this point. I've known Logan for 2 years, I think?
Probably, yeah.
Around 2 years now. And so I get to guest speak and kind of show students in his class and the program, kinesiology program here, how MAD training is, what we do, and kind of give some background on that. So we're doing this interview right after that class. So we just got done doing some speed and agility work, a lot of fun. So let's start off, let's roll it back in the years a little bit. Give me some chronological history. Where were you born? What kind of give me some background? Yeah, where were you born? I don't know where you're from.
Okay, so I was born, this is a funny story. I was born in Corsicana, Texas.
Oh, come on, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, little did I know, I was born, I think, in a hospital that burned down. And I got a birth certificate, and I remember getting a passport at age like 21, 22.
Yeah.
And I went, and they basically said, this passport isn't eligible, it doesn't have a seal. And so I was like, I wonder if I was born in Corsicana, I don't know. So I had to go through the process of getting a new legitimate birth certificate. That's what it was, birth certificate. But anyway, I was born in Corsicana. Okay. My parents are from the Waxahachie-Ennis area.
Yeah.
But they moved down to Austin before, I was like 3 or 4. So I've been in.
So you've really been here.
I've been here forever. I was raised in Dripping Springs. Okay. I graduated in Dripping Springs High School in 1998. Dripping Springs was a small high school back then. It was a 3A high school. I graduated with 135 in my class. Wow. Played a lot of sports, loved it. Came to UT. I have no idea how I got in. I was not the most studious person. I must have had a really good essay, but I got in. So I started my undergrad as an undeclared major. Had no idea. Didn't do very well. My first year. Didn't think this was for me. And then I went to an advisor, and they said, "What do you like to do?" I was like, "I really like training and sports." They said, "You should get into kinesiology." So I went and I sat in my first kinesiology class. It was Ken 310 and John Ivey, who's a legend in our field, was up there, and he started talking, and it was just like a gong went off. I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be.
That's awesome.
So I did that. I finished my undergrad in 2002. Went to grad school in 2004. Met my wife first day of grad school. We went out 6 months later. We were engaged. 6 months after that, we were married.
Wild, man.
So I worked. I went to grad school. Was trying to decide what I wanted to do. Decided I wanted to be a strength coach. So I went and mentored under he was the strength coach here for many years with basketball. His name was Todd Wright. And I interned under him during grad school. He helped open up a business in town called Train for the Game. I went there after grad school. I worked there for 4 years, trained all kinds of individuals, all kinds of athletes. Traveled on the PGA Tour a little bit to work with our golfers. And then 4 years after that, in 2006, he said, I have a job as a assistant strength coach for basketball. You want to do it? So I said yes. And so I got into that. I worked with the men's and women's programs here as a strength coach from 2006 to 2015. Wow. We had a coaching change. I decided, I got a family now. I got kids. I'm never home. So then I worked for a group called Move Solutions. It was a tech group that we worked with a lot of fitness industry businesses. It was more business to business. And I did their kind of education for their coaches, their training programs. I was kind of a part owner in that. And then I was doing that for probably 6 years. And Dixie Stanforth, who's a legend here, she was the one that was a mentor for me. And she kind of came to me and said, what do you think about teaching? Well, that sounds interesting. She goes, okay, well, you need some experience, so go be an adjunct at ACC. So she hooked me up with that, and I was an adjunct for ACC, and a year later, she called me up and said, I'm retiring.
Oh, damn.
And so I want you to interview for this.
For the job, for my job.
So I'm starting my 3rd year here, and had no idea I would I would be a professor.
That's wild.
Yeah.
What was your number one sport in high school? What'd you like?
I love basketball.
Basketball. Okay, so that was a natural transition into like college.
Loved it. I love the game of basketball, but I played all kinds. I loved, I played football. Early on, I loved golf. I loved tennis. I loved track and field. I loved, I was really martial arts was a big avenue for me growing up. So loved it.
Tell me about your parents.
My parents.
What did they do?
My dad. My mom taught elementary school.
Oh, okay.
So my mom.
So that's a bug then, maybe.
Yeah, I guess.
Right? It could be, right?
Well, she told me, she goes, don't teach unless you really love kids.
Yeah.
And I was like, I really love kids, so I'm not going to teach.
Sure.
But I like this age of kids. I love the 20 to 22-year-old kids. I love that spark in life. So she was she's a retired math teacher. Okay. And my dad he was a telecommunications engineer. He was with AT&T. He was a Vietnam vet. Okay. Got out at Vietnam, got a job with AT&T, worked for them forever. Yeah. Got early retirement there, went on and worked with a couple of other telecommunications back when there was landlines. Yeah. And so right before the mobile phones came in, he got out of that. Oh yeah. So they're retired. They're still alive. They live with my sister actually on her property out near Albert, Texas. No one knows where that is, but it's between Blanco and Stonewall. Wow. Okay. You know where Blanco and Stonewall is?
I have an idea where Blanco is.
They live on a massive property. It's a Longhorn ranch. Yeah. So there's longhorns going around.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Give me any kind of memorable story of you as an athlete growing up that involves your parents. Is there anything like that? Riding, them driving you to practice as a 14-year-old.
Oh, I do remember that.
Something like that. Yeah.
I'll tell you. Yeah, this is probably an eye-opening in life. Yeah. I remember I was a sophomore in high school, and as a sophomore I played on varsity.
Gotcha.
So, but I didn't have a car.
Was your high school sophomore, junior, senior, or was it freshman?
Freshman.
Got it. I went to school where it was sophomore, junior, senior.
Oh wow.
And then freshmen were the 9th grade, and then middle school for 7, 8, 9.
Oh nice. It was freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. So I was on the varsity team, and I was kind of, obviously low in the totem pole. Sure. Because I was one of the youngest, and so it was during Christmas break, and we had practice. Early morning practice, but it was during Christmas break, so school wasn't going on. Yeah. And the night before, I had a girlfriend, and the night before, I had, it was one of these, like, we were fighting or something, so I was talking on the phone with her, like, all night. Yeah. We were trying to solve our situations or whatever, and I could probably tell you your name right now, but we were talking, and then, so I go to sleep real late. Yeah. But I had to be up at practice, and it was probably 9 a.m., which was early for me back then.
Sure.
But I got up, alarm didn't go off, and I remember waking up, and I was like, oh my God, I'm late for practice. So I run in, and my dad was sitting on the couch. Okay. The fire was going because it was December, and he's looking at the TV, and he's drinking coffee. And I'm like, oh my God, why didn't you wake me up? I have practice. And he goes, I don't have basketball practice.
Correct.
That's your responsibility.
Correct.
And I was like, oh my gosh, so my life is my responsibility. Correct. And that was huge because then I got to practice. I'm not flying. I'm getting around. Will you take me to practice? He goes, I'll take you to practice. So I get to practice. They're already going. I walk in. I'm like, Coach, I'm so sorry. He's like, just fall in. Exactly. And then afterwards, it was the whole, I'm running lines and all of that. But that was an eye-opening where, I'm responsible for what I get out of it.
Correct. Yeah. I want to do this. Yeah. But if you're going to do this, I remember I used to coach for Lone Star Soccer Club. Yeah. And even at 11 and 12 and 13, I had some parents, not all, but some parents who literally were that type of parent already with their 12 and 13-year-old of if this is something you want to do, then it's your responsibility to have your bag ready before you go to practice. It's your responsibility to be ready on time when we need to leave. All of these little detail items that were the child's responsibility to go to practice, and it's the exact same. I totally, those were always the parents that I left.
It was
just because it wasn't hand holding. It was no, you need to. This is a job. It's not, but you need to. If you're going to do this, these are the 3 things you need to do every single time before we go to practice. Yeah, every time. That was as a non-parent. That is how I think I would want to parent if I was a parent.
I think it's important too because my parents were great with me because they never cared if we won or lost.
Yeah.
It was very encouraging, which allowed me. I feel like I had a much more, kind of utopian experience with sports where I just loved to play.
Got it.
And the worst thing for me was practice was canceled.
Gotcha. Okay.
It wasn't ever forced upon me because it was a pain for them to drive me to practice and pay the money or whatever.
And you're in the back seat.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So let's get into college a little bit. So favorite class, favorite kinesiology class. I can tell you my least and my most favorite classes. What was the favorite part of like studying kinesiology, exercise science?
Well, one, I felt like it was what I was supposed to do. So like when I was in class, I was always engaged.
Okay.
I always wanted to go to class.
Okay.
I felt like I'm in the right spot.
Gotcha.
So I felt like I belonged. But my favorite class was anatomy.
Got it. Interesting.
It was taught by Dr. Farrer, and he doesn't teach it anymore, but it was the hardest class I took.
Yeah, for sure.
But I got down to that class and I knew anatomy, and I feel like my basis of everything that I've done in my continuing education, anatomy was like the language. And then once I understood that, I got it. Gotcha. And so it was so fascinating to me that we had this body that I have, and I could learn like this is, these are the bones of the wrist, and these are the nerves, and this is what innervates this muscle, and that was a fascinating thing for me. And then obviously when I got into Dixie Stanforth and her husband Phil Stanforth's classes, they brought out that curiosity out of you. So those were some of my favorites.
Yeah, I envy your position a little bit because as someone, I found kinesiology, I'd say quite late in undergrad. Like I was a photojournalism major for a year and a half, and then I jumped out of that because I didn't want to be a writer, and they were making everybody writers as well for the first part of the semesters. And then it became sociology, and eventually found psychology, and then it took 5 years to graduate undergrad. I think it was the start of my first, my senior year, my fourth year, when I discovered kines, and I was like, oh crap, that's what I want to do. Like, where has this been for 4 years? I've not seen this, heard this, and I had a roommate who I had just moved in with, been friends for years, but didn't know what he was majoring in. And all of a sudden he's majoring in it. I'm like, oh, why didn't I know about this? Like when I started, why didn't I walk into an advisor's office and be like, I don't know what I want to study?
Yeah.
Because it was that, and then going to grad school for that, because I didn't get enough of it. I was like, okay, I need more of this. And I wish I had found it earlier in my college career.
Well, I didn't even know it was a field of study.
No.
I was like, they study that? They study physiology?
Even at North Texas, I had NSCA board members as professors, and I didn't know anything about it at all until I was, my 5th year of undergrad. I'm like, how did I not know any of this at all? These guys are people I should be learning from for 4 years now. Yeah. It's been an adventure, but it's not been a linear path for sure.
Exactly.
So let's talk about the class we just got through, and maybe some of the other classes you're teaching right now. What is the objective of your tenure, your classes? What is in purposes of what you're teaching? What are you teaching? Yeah.
So I teach 4 classes.
Okay.
I teach, and they're both in what our kines specializations. So one of our specializations is called health fitness instructor.
Okay.
And then one of our specializations is sport coaching, basically.
Gotcha.
So they're 2 different tracks. And so on the health fitness instructor side that you've seen, is I teach a class, Kin 332, where it's basically how to work with a client in a movement setting. Like, what are the keys of movement? Now, we use it more in a fitness, personal trainer mindset.
Sure.
But we also incorporate therapy, physical therapy, athletic training, strength conditioning.
Got it.
And then that feeds into a field work and personal training class where they actually get to have clients and implement that, and guest speakers like yourself come in.
Gotcha.
The coaching classes is coaching theories and principles. It's all lecture-based, kind of your standard university-style course.
Got it.
I teach a coaching theories principles 1, coaching theories principles 2. It's basically why you're a coach, what are the ethics of coaching, what is your purpose in coaching, kind of those styles of it.
Yep.
If you look at what I try to get across, I don't view myself as an academic.
Okay. Yep.
I had a career in the field,
Yes.
and I think I was hired more because of that.
That's fair.
So my teaching is I could care less if, I probably shouldn't say that, but I could care less if the grades that my students make.
Yep.
I really don't worry about that. What I try to do is convey information in a way that I know they need to know it.
Yeah.
And also I teach to the students that want to learn.
Yep. Yep.
And I think like it's different than in an elementary school. We have to teach all these students reading.
Correct.
We have to get all these up to a competency.
Correct.
When you get into the university setting, you have students that are paying a lot of money. They don't come to class. That's their prerogative.
That's their prerogative. Absolutely right.
It's not required.
And go back to your dad's quote.
Yeah.
I didn't practice today.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So I really focus on students that want to learn,
Yep.
and I try to be available to them and convey my experience and aggregate the information that's coming at them so much into simple complexity that I can convey to them.
Simple complexity.
Yeah, that's my. I try to take complex things and simplify them.
I like that.
And I teach them more from a principle standpoint. Like I like to teach them the principles of why they're doing something.
Yeah.
Then the strategies off of that of how to implement those principles.
Got it.
And then what it looks like, the techniques and the exercises, those just kind of appear.
It's funny too, because that's what we talked about. Like from a standpoint of a kid coming into my gym as an intern or anything like that, they're asking all these technical questions to me today after class is over, and I'm giving them a very principle-based answer, and that's exactly what you're doing. Like, it's the same concept. That's why I think synergy is what it is. Like, it's amazing how they have to hear the same answer multiple times before it actually becomes rote, right? It becomes ingrained in them as well. Right?
And the principles never change. The principles, that's the thing, the methods constantly do, but the principles don't. So I know the methods that I'm going to be teaching them it's been different. Each semester I'm changing things that I feel like the students or our certain population can grasp, but the principles that they're based on should never change. And I hope that those principles they learn kind of, stays with them their entire career.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk a bit more about the students themselves. So with the aim of the podcast, this is like episode 15 at this point, right? We've interviewed students we've interviewed parents, and it's always been about raising healthy, happy children, right? And so we interviewed parents who were clients of mine or former clients of mine who I either trained the parent or I trained the child, or coached the child as well. Next, that was the first 5 episodes. The second 5 were all former athletes. Mm-hmm. They're all 25 and above. They're all kids that I used to train or coach, and they're telling me about what their parents did to help them, how it's influenced them now, mm-hmm. right? So these last 4 or 5 that I've done have all been with coaches, with teachers, professors, professional strength coaches, and now yourself in this situation as a college, assistant professor. So give me a little bit about the average 20 to 22 year old. What do you see first things first? This is the 3rd time that this class has met, right? Mm-hmm. So give me, as best you can, a generalization about what you're seeing from a 20 to 22 year old coming into your class right now in the past 2 years.
So a 20 to 22 year old, they're very similar to, I feel like myself at 20 to 22.
Sure.
They, and it's in a totally different context. They are nervous about the future. They are really scared to make a mistake.
Yep.
They think that the first decision that they make after school is going to be their life.
Correct. Correct.
And they don't know. Sometimes they're paralyzed by that.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, our generation, I feel like, was I didn't know. I had all those same fears, but I knew I could figure it out. I had figured out so many things in my life at that point. I was like, I'm going to be all right. I'm going to figure it out. I had a healthy amount of ignorance to the fact.
Yeah, fair.
And this generation has so much information coming at them.
Exactly.
They can see, they're looking at these mortgage rates in Austin are going,
Correct.
They're going crazy. I'm never going to be able to buy a house. And I'm like, I didn't even know what that meant.
And they're telling me
Yeah. So I think all of the information that they have coming out of it just throws fuel on that fire.
Correct.
So what I try to convey to them is you can't control any of that stuff.
No.
The only thing that you can control is showing up here at like in presence. Your form has to be here on time. And when you're here, you're paying attention, you're putting in effort. And if you just take care of those throughout your life, you can't help but get better. Because the individual that a gym owner like yourself wants to hire is that individual that's there, and when they're there, they're giving maximal effort and mindfulness to that activity.
Correct.
And then who's the one that gets promoted? Well, it's the one that's been here constantly, and then they're getting better. And then when you go to the next step in life, you won't know anything. But how do you learn?
Correct.
You show up, and when you're there, you just focus and work hard.
Absolutely. I mean, like, I can remember with one of my coaches where there was a point after maybe 6 months of just her not struggling every day, but there was always a struggle. In a given 3 hours or 4 hours of coming into work, she struggled somewhere with at least one thing, right? And it was like that for 6 months. Where I'm having to teach, correct, calm, something like that. And it was at one point, I believe she said something along the lines of, "Is there not a book I can read on this?" Because she's extremely intelligent, and she's very tied to, like we talked about, the details, but not the principles and just like the experience level. And it's like, no, you just need more time under tension to understand how this is going to work. You can't cheat this system of experience. Right?
Well, and the one thing I try to do with this age group too is, especially in our field, it's a person skill field. Like, you have to know how to communicate, talk to people, create a connection, develop a relationship. And if you have that skill set, your technical skills, they'll improve. You're buying yourself time. Where you're going to get hired, and you're going to just keep getting better and better.
Absolutely.
They're also the way I tell them, you can make a mistake right now, and like, if you go to PT school and you don't want to be a PT 6 months after that, you can leave. Nobody is depending on your income for your mortgage. You don't have kids yet. You don't, like, so you can make a mistake.
Absolutely.
It's the time to make mistakes.
Tons of them.
Yes. And then every speaker that I have come in here, they tell the same story where they never would have realized where they are today back when they're in their 20s. So I just tell them, you can't focus on all this stuff you can't control. You just have to take care of the things you can control, which is, I'm showing up, and when I'm there, I'm going to be present. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to have a good attitude. I'm going to learn how to make a connection. I'm going to not be selfish.
So as a part of the internship, and everyone that's in the room with me right now has done this, and I buy it. Everyone in the room gets Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, right? And they have to read it, and they have a book report where they literally have to write up a 3 to 5 sentence, analysis of the chapter, and then another 3 to 5 sentences on how it would apply in the gym.
Love it.
And it's part of, like, literally, I read that book years ago. I'm like, you know what? From this point forward, every intern, I'm buying the book. Here you go. Here's a gift. It's a $10 gift. Go ahead. You have to read this, and I need to see it written down on paper every week, right? And sometimes we don't finish the whole thing, but they will start and read that because it's all principle based. There's no detail in that book other than how to basically treat people realistically.
And especially in our field, it's always going to be that's what makes me feel like AI is not going to take us over, because
I am not worried for my job at all. At all, because there's been already training devices like the mirror and all these other things. Fine if you want to do it, but I'm not losing clients. It's not happening. You
have to have those people skills, and honestly, in our field too, I try to let them know too, if you haven't fallen in love with kinesiology, anatomy at this age, it might not be the field for you, because you want to fall in love with your vocation. You want to fall in love with your purpose. And when you do that, there's going to be many different paths off of that, but at least you're in a field where it's not just a job.
Correct. Correct. No, I mean, from a standpoint of, I think the AI argument is very interesting, because what I'm getting now from a client base are intelligent adults who are more interested in longevity. And I think they intuitively understand that they can't get that from tech. They probably could get some of it from tech, but realistically having someone teach them how to move, right, and teach them how to eat, how to take care of themselves. Like, I don't think that that's something that a lot of people are getting from tech in the fullest degree.
Yeah, I mean, it's like actually, we know, like, for health, like trying to move more towards nature.
Correct.
Which is actually away from tech.
Yeah, correct. I'm training a client this morning, and he's doing a rear foot elevated split squat, and he's just got back from a 4-day trip to LA, right, or to the Bay Area, and he's giving me feedback on his hip and how it feels, and so I film him and I show him, and then I go do one, and I show him the difference between what it is. I'm like, and he's trying to make an argument. He's trying to make the argument about his body. And I was like, well, dude, you just got off a plane yesterday. You were sitting in a plane. You were sleeping in a bed. You went bouldering and mountain climbing with this group of coworkers. You're outside your norm, and like it's not. I'm not surprised at all. When you told me you were going to be gone for 4 days and you're coming in on Friday instead of Tuesday, my brain automatically went to 5 minutes before you walk in the door. So he's probably going to be stiffer, tighter, AI is not doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, there's no way that some online system is taking that into account beforehand and going, and just giving him the grace that it's okay because you looked better on the third set than you did the first set. And just do a little bit more hip mobility, and you'll be fine. Like, that's not happening.
Not changing behavior.
Exactly right. It's funny you talk about how they are, the 20 to 22-year-olds are, scared, not sure, wanting to solve everything early on, because I can remember graduating with my undergraduate degree and going to dinner with my parents and like my best friends, my two best friends, and walking out of the dinner and crying in the parking lot in front of my mother because I didn't have a job yet and I just walked the stage 3 hours prior. And I went right back to grad school. Like, it was literally the next thing to do. I was like, okay, I'm just going to go back to school because I don't have a job and I have a degree in psychology with nothing to show for it. And it was the scariest moment. And so, like, I enjoy that now on this side, having those kids come in as an interns and just doing my best to show them, obviously, my ability to do what I do, but that it's okay. It's going to take time. You don't have the experience yet. Everything is okay. Like, you're going to screw up all the time, and that's okay because you'll learn from every one of them and you'll progressively go forward.
And you need that. The other thing we talk a lot about with students too is like they view that feeling of anxiousness as like something's wrong.
Correct.
Like this anxiety that I have is wrong.
Correct.
What you need, we explain that from a physiological standpoint that creates action. You need that. If you're feeling anxious about something, it's good. That's good. That's a good thing. That means it's a big deal. You don't want to feel non-anxious about the next step of your life. Like that's a bad place to be. You want to have that anxiousness and then use that. Lean into that. Say that's going to create action. I need to get my stuff together. I need to create action here. I don't just need to move away from that uncomfortable feeling. And that's one of the lessons is that's life. Life is about learning to deal with uncomfortable things and challenging yourself from that, and then moving on to the next step, and then it just becomes, it's comfortable with the uncomfortability.
Correct. Yeah, exactly right. Give me an example of, at least in the 2 years or so you've been doing this class, right? These classes. A highlight, a positive story about someone who you saw progress, transform over the course of the semester of class, from that 20 to 22-year-old that was twitchy, nervous, not sure, anxious, always wanting to find an answer that wasn't the right answer in the first place, into something that had really done something for themselves, realistically.
That's interesting to say, because I feel like we forget how these years go really fast, and it's amazing to see them as a 20-year-old in my first Chem 332 class, and then I see them a semester later, and then I don't see them for a year, and then they're about to graduate and they come in and talk with me, and they're a completely different person. Like, they're so much more mature, and when we see them day to day, we don't see that because you get that creepy normalcy. It's like they look the same. And all of a sudden you go away from them for a year and you come back and you're like, you're a totally mature individual. I have one student, a previous student, that was like, took my kines class, and then I was in field work, and I went and observed her train somebody, and I was like, I just knew that, I mean, she's just got these gifts.
Yep.
Like, she's got these gifts of like creating connection. She was real personable. She coached very well. I mean, like, our program, it's just, who cares? It wasn't irrelevant.
It's irrelevant. Yeah.
So, but she was, I asked her, like, what do you want to do? She said, I don't know really know what I want to do. Everyone's going to PT school, so I might go to PT school. And I'm like, have you ever thought about like personal training? Because you've got whatever it is, you have it, right?
Yeah.
So she did an internship with a group. She went to, instantly 3 months into that, the facility just hired her. Yep. They're like, oh no, she's got it. And now I go in there, I'll go into that facility and I'll talk with her, and she's one of the best coaches there. Just because, and she didn't even know that. She didn't even know she had that skill set.
Sure.
So I think a lot of times these young individuals, they don't know the gifts they have.
Correct.
And I have this individual in front of me, and I'm like, you're going to be a superstar.
Exactly.
And you don't even know it.
I have someone in the gym now who's been with me for a couple of years now, and she walked in like that on day one. Yeah. And I'm sitting there going, I don't think you know yet. I know you don't know yet, and you need just to let it marinate for a little bit. Yeah. But I'm telling you right now, whatever you want to do, you're going to do it as well as anybody else.
Yes.
Like, and whatever choices you make are going to be good. Like, it's you just have all of these intangible things that, talking to someone for an hour, you're like, that kid's going to be fan. And having kids from this program come into our gym and do that, I love when I get that one, because I've had a handful of them, not many, but a few of them over the years where you're like, this is the kid I need to have in this gym, because they have all of these intangible things, and but at the same time they're still nervous as all hell. Right? And you're like, that's okay. Everything else around you is so good that it's going to be fine. You just have to be patient. Right?
Yeah, I see that a lot. I'll see a timid, and they're always intimidated by the professor or whatever up there. And again, you've experienced this generation too. They're very, they don't like to ask questions, or they don't want to be seen as saying something. Not knowing something.
Exactly.
And I try to create an environment where, I try to bring that out of them.
Yep.
Where we develop a connection, they build friendships.
Yep.
They kind of get out of that shell, and they realize they have all of the tools necessary to be really, really successful, not only in this field, in life, but they're nervous about it because it's the unknown.
Correct. I try to find ways to have the conversations with them to draw out their non-knowledge, if you will, on something, just so they can feel comfortable with me going, that's fine, no big deal. Like, I need you to understand that I don't care. Like, I'm your employer. I'm the guy that has created the business and is teaching you the program, and here's how we do this, and here's the details you want so much. But in reality is, I don't care about that, and it's okay if you don't have all that information at this point in time. When you walk in the door, I don't expect you to know anything. I expect you to be a good person, and that's pretty much about it at this point in time. So I try to create the situations where I can reduce their tension by admitting that I don't care, that I know things that they would expect they should know when they walk in the door.
And I think that's what being an adult is. That's the learning.
Oh, absolutely.
Those qualities. Yeah,
for sure. So let's do this. Let's wrap up with one more thing. So again, I think from a standpoint of who's going to see this and listen to it, it's going to be our client base, who most of them are parents, right? Mm-hmm. So most of them are, parents of anywhere from a 12 to an 18-year-old. Yeah. So they have kids that are going to college, if not already. What would you say to the parents, or even to the kids of those kids, about how to approach college, how to be a college student, how to become an adult? Like, what's an important tip from you, you would say?
That's pretty amazing, because I have a 17-year-old daughter. My 17-year-old daughter is already applying here, and so it'll be crazy next year if she's here and I'm teaching.
That's so wild.
So I have these conversations a lot.
Yeah.
So I think I love the years of college, especially for me.
Sure.
But I love, because you're out of the house. Yep. And you're actually, it's kind of like I get to play adult. honestly.
Sure. No.
I'm kind of playing.
I feel like I play adults every single day. Man.
So
it's
learning,
the truth of the matter.
Learning routine.
Yeah.
Learning like, okay, I need to go to sleep. I need to make sure I prioritize sleep. Now, knowing I'm going to go have fun, but I gotta balance being able to get my work done and having the joys in life, right? So I need to focus on that. Priority is just go to class.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, like the only students that do bad in any of my classes, the only classes that I did bad in,
correct,
were the classes I did not go to.
Sure.
So if you just go to class, you will succeed. One of the things that I tell is treat your time at school as like a job. So at a job, let's say you had a job and you only had to work, let's say 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., which most of the time that's our classes.
Yeah.
And so during 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., you have a set schedule. If I'm not in class, I'm studying, or I'm getting my exercise in,
sure,
or I'm training, or I'm doing something related to school. I'm using that time. So then when I'm done at 3 o'clock, then I have my time to do everything I need to do. And I feel good about it. I can play my intramural sports, or I can go out with my friends, or do whatever. But treating college life as I have a routine, and it sets me up to learn routine and how it's going to be successful.
That's a great point, because trying to teach that
later on in life
to graduates or people who are coming to me as interns, and okay, so make sure you click their roll for attendance when they came today. Like, you're having to show them your routine. And if someone is already a routine person, like most of my coaches have always been, it's very easy. Every so often I've gotten ones where there's no routine. Clearly there's been no routine. So that's a great, I'm taking that with me now. And it's a great point. It's hard to do that.
It's very hard. And the second one of the big things is, especially when you come to a place like the University of Texas, and I didn't realize this when I was an undergrad, I realized it more when I was in grad school. I really realize it now that I'm teaching here, is this is people here only want to help you. Like, this is what we do. This is why we do it. We don't do it for the money.
Absolutely.
We do it because we want, so take advantage of that. Like, we are literally here for you. Take advantage of other departments. I mean, we have people here. I was just telling a class the other day, it's like we have a professor in math here that won basically the Nobel Prize for math. And no one knows his name. Like, he's one of the greatest mathematicians of all time. And he's just right here.
And he's hanging out.
He's hanging out here. And he's just sitting in his office waiting on people to come in.
Correct.
And so just take advantage of that resource. That's why I bring people in like yourself. Is I'm bringing these people in that want to give back to this next generation. And take advantage of it. Go shadow. Go intern. Email. Go talk to them. Make them say, "Hey, I don't have time for you." Make them say that.
We had a conversation last night in the gym with all 4 coaches before the last session of the night, and only one person was coaching that person, right? And having a conversation like that where they're asking me questions, I'm asking them questions, it's a roundabout kind of situation. I go home and I tell my wife about that.
Don't tell me.
Like, it's like one of those things where if I have an intern, he comes in 3 times a week for a semester, and I go a week without him actually engaging with a questionnaire, it's a bummer. Like, I want people to engage in that way when you're in that role, and because why would you not? If you're in a learning scenario, why would you not ask questions of the person that you're supposed to be learning from, right?
And that's your time. This is the time where you have not only the time, you literally have the time, but you have the energy and you have the youthful curiosity to, like, I really want to go learn this stuff.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Logan, man, I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Definitely. Guys, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time. Take care.